The space station Prime floated in the darkness between stars like a sleeping giant made of metal and light. It was one of the largest trading posts in the Draconis Imperium, a place where dragons conducted business with the lesser species of the galaxy. Thousands of creatures lived and worked within its curved walls, but none were as powerful as the dragons who ruled over them all. Deep within the station, in a private chamber decorated with gold and precious stones, a young dragon hatchling named Aran sat alone in the corner. He was small for his age, barely 40 cycles old, which meant he was still a baby by dragon standards. His scales had not yet hardened into the armor that adult dragons wore. They were still soft and colored a deep blue, like the oceans of distant water worlds. His wings were too small to carry him far, and his fire was weak enough that he could only produce small puffs of smoke when he was upset. Right now, he was very upset. In his claws, Oran held a mechanical bird. It was a beautiful thing, or at least it had been beautiful once. The bird was made of metal feathers that shimmered with colors that changed when light touched them. Its eyes were tiny amber gems, and inside its chest was a voice box that could produce the most wonderful songs. When it worked, the bird would fly in circles around Oran's head, singing melodies that made him feel safe and happy and loved. But the bird did not work anymore. One of its wings was bent and broken, crushed in an accident that Oran tried not to think about. The voice box inside made only sad static sounds now, like whispers from very far away. The amber eyes were dark. The bird was dead, and no matter how many times Oran pressed it against his chest and wished for it to wake up, it remained silent and still. The door to his chamber opened, and Oran quickly hid the bird behind his back. His older clutch siblings entered, 3 of them, all bigger and stronger than him. Their scales had already begun to harden, and their eyes held the cold confidence that all dragons learn to wear like masks. "There he is," said the oldest, "still crying over that broken toy." "I am not crying," Oran said, but his voice was small and weak. "You are pathetic," said another sibling, a female named Era. "Dragons do not form attachments to objects. We are conquerors. We rule the stars. We do not weep over trinkets like the lesser species do." "Give it to us," demanded, extending his claw. "We will throw it into the recycling chamber where it belongs. Father says you must learn to let go of childish things." Oran backed away until he hit the wall. His small wings pressed flat against the cold metal, and his heart beat fast with fear. But something else burned inside him too, something that felt like fire in his chest even though he was too young to breathe real flames. He would not give them the bird. He would not. "No," he said. His siblings laughed at him. They called him weak and foolish and said that he would never grow into a proper dragon if he kept acting this way. But they did not take the bird from him, perhaps because even they could see something dangerous in his eyes, something that warned them not to push too far. They left him alone with their laughter echoing in the chamber. Later that evening, Oran's father came to see him. Admiral was a massive dragon, ancient and powerful, with scales as black as the void between galaxies. He had commanded fleets that conquered entire star systems. His name was spoken with fear across 1,000 worlds. He looked at his youngest son with eyes that held no warmth, only cold evaluation. "Your siblings tell me you still keep that broken thing," the Admiral said. His voice was deep and rumbled like distant thunder. Oran said nothing. He held the bird. "It was made by your mother," the Admiral continued. "I know this. She wasted many hours creating toys for you when she should have been preparing for battle. Perhaps that softness is why she fell at Andromeda's gate." The words cut deeper than any claw could. Oran's mother had died in a great battle 2 cycles ago, leading a charge against enemy forces. She had been brave and fierce, everything a dragon should be. But she had also been kind to Oran in ways that his father never was. She had made him the mechanical bird as a clutch gift, a present given to hatchlings when they emerged from their eggs. She had programmed it to sing the songs of their home world. She had kissed his small head with her great snout and told him that she would always love him. And then she had gone to war and never come back. "Discard it," Admiral commanded. "It is beneath you. You are my son, heir to my fleet. You will not shame me by clinging to broken remnants of the past." He turned and left without waiting for a response. Dragons did not ask, they commanded. Oran waited until he was sure his father was gone. Then he wrapped the mechanical bird in a piece of soft cloth and tucked it under his arm. He could not stay here. His siblings would try again to take it from him, and eventually his father would simply order it destroyed. He needed to find somewhere safe, somewhere no dragon would think to look for an admiral's son. He slipped out of his chamber and made his way through the station's corridors. The public areas were grand and beautiful, decorated with the treasures of conquered worlds. But Oran knew about the other parts of the station too, the places where the lesser species worked. The maintenance tunnels, the labor quarters, the forgotten corners where dragons never bothered to go because such places were beneath their notice. He found a small space behind a coolant junction in a maintenance corridor, near what the station maps called the human quarter. Humans were one of the lesser species that worked on the station. They were small and fragile, and lived such short lives that dragons barely considered them worth noticing. They fixed things and cleaned things, and did all the work that dragons thought was too boring or too dirty for themselves. Oran squeezed into the small space and curled his body around the mechanical bird. He was scared and alone, and very far from anything that felt like home. But at least here, no one would try to take his last piece of his mother away from him. He pressed his snout against the bird's cold metal feathers and closed his eyes. In the darkness, he could almost pretend that it was still singing to him, that his mother was still alive, that everything was going to be okay. He stayed there through the night, a small dragon guarding a broken treasure, waiting for something he could not name. Had worked on Prime for 3 years, and in that time she had learned many things about the galaxy. She had learned that humans were considered a lesser species by almost everyone they met. She had learned that dragons were proud and cruel and cared about power more than anything else. She had learned that the universe was very large and very cold, and that small acts of kindness were rare enough to be precious. She was 42 years old, which was middle-aged for a human but barely a blink of an eye by dragon standards. Her hair was turning gray at the edges, and she kept it tied back in a simple knot so it would not get caught in machinery. Her hands were rough and calloused from years of work, covered in small scars from burns and cuts and accidents. She was not beautiful or important or special in any way that the galaxy cared about. She was just a maintenance worker who fixed broken things. Every morning, woke up in her small room in the human quarter and put on her worn work clothes. She ate a simple breakfast of nutrition paste that tasted like nothing at all. Then she walked through the maintenance corridors with her tool bag over her shoulder, checking pipes and wires and machines that kept the station running. The dragons never thanked her for this work. They probably did not even know her name. To them, she was just another human doing human work, easily replaced if something happened to her. But did not do her job for thanks or recognition. She did it because fixing things made her feel useful. She did it because every broken machine she repaired was a small victory against a universe that seemed designed to break everything eventually. She did it because her grandmother, back on Earth, had taught her that the most important thing a person could do was leave things a little better than they found them. On this particular morning was checking a coolant junction in a corridor that nobody used much. It was a boring job, the kind of routine maintenance that had to be done even though nothing was actually wrong. She was about to move on to the next junction when she heard a sound that made her stop. It was a growl, low and threatening but also somehow small, like a creature trying to sound dangerous but not quite succeeding. Moved carefully toward the sound. Her first thought was that some kind of animal had gotten loose on the station. It happened sometimes. Ships came from all over the galaxy, and occasionally something living would escape from cargo holds and find its way into the maintenance tunnels. Usually these creatures were more scared than dangerous, and had learned that moving slowly and speaking softly was the best way to handle them. But what she found behind the coolant junction was not an animal, it was a dragon. A very small dragon. The hatchling was wedged into a space that was almost too tight for his body. His blue scales were dull and dirty, and his amber eyes were wide with a mixture of fear and anger. Smoke curled from his nostrils in thin wisps, which knew meant he was upset. In his claws, pressed tight against his chest, he held something that glinted with faint colors in the dim light. Had never been this close to a dragon before. Workers like her were supposed to bow and move aside when dragons passed through the public corridors. They were not supposed to look directly at dragons, not supposed to speak to them unless spoken to, and definitely not supposed to find dragon children hiding in maintenance tunnels. But this was clearly a child. A scared, tired, dirty child who was clutching something so tightly that its heart ached just looking at him. "Easy there," she said, keeping her voice soft and calm. She lowered herself slowly to sit on the floor, making herself as small and unthreatening as possible. "I am not here to hurt you or take anything from you." The growl grew louder, but the hatchling did not attack. He just pressed himself further back against the wall, as if he could somehow push himself right through the metal and escape to somewhere safer. Looked at what he was holding. It took her a moment to recognize it in the dim light, but when she did, her breath caught in her throat. It was a mechanical bird, made with incredible skill and artistry. The metal feathers were designed to change color like real feathers on some alien species she had once seen in a documentary. The craftsmanship was beautiful, the kind of work that took years to learn and hours to complete. But the bird was broken. One wing was badly bent, and could see that the internal mechanisms had been damaged. The voice box was probably cracked too, which would explain why the bird was not making any sound. She understood now. She understood everything. This was not just a broken toy. This was something precious, something loved, and this child was protecting it with everything he had. "That is a beautiful bird," said quietly. "Someone very skilled made it." The hatchling's eyes flickered with surprise. He had probably expected her to run away or call for help, or do any of the things that lesser species were supposed to do when they encountered dragons. He had not expected her to sit down and talk about his toy. "My mother made it," he said. His voice was rough as if he had not spoken in a long time. "She is dead now." Such simple words carrying such heavy pain. Felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes, but she did not let them fall. This child did not need her tears. He needed something else, something more useful. She leaned forward slightly, studying the bird with the experienced eyes of someone who had spent her whole life taking things apart and putting them back together. She could see the damage clearly now. The wing actuator was bent at a bad angle. The resonance chamber, which would be the heart of the voice box, had a visible crack running through its casing. "The wing can be fixed," she said finally. "The actuator is bent, but that just means it needs to be realigned. The voice box is harder, but I think I can find replacement parts if I look in the right places." The hatchling stared at her. The growl had stopped completely now, replaced by something that might have been hope. It was a fragile thing, that hope. It sat on his face like a butterfly that might fly away at any sudden movement. "You can see what is wrong with it?" he asked. "I fix things," said simply. She shrugged her shoulders, a small movement that carried years of humble work behind it. "It is what humans do. We are not big or strong or magical. We do not live for thousands of years like your kind. But we look at broken things and we think about how to make them work again. It is maybe the only thing we are really good at." She held out her hand, palm up, not reaching for the bird but offering something else. An invitation, a choice. "I cannot promise anything," she said honestly. "The bird is badly damaged and some of the parts are things I have never seen before, but I can try, if you will let me." For a long moment the hatchling did not move. He looked at her hand, then at her face, then back at the bird he held so protectively. Could see the war happening inside him, the fear of trusting fighting against the desperate need for help. Finally, very slowly, he lowered the bird just enough for her to see it more clearly. He did not hand it over, not yet, but he let her look. "My name is Oran," he said quietly. "Hello, Oran," replied. "My name is I'm very pleased to meet you." And she meant it. In all her years on this station, surrounded by species who thought humans were barely worth noticing, this small moment of connection felt like the most important thing she had ever done. The days turned into weeks and kept coming back to the maintenance corridor. Every evening after her regular work was done, she would walk through the quiet tunnels with her tool bag over one shoulder and a small package of food tucked under her arm. The food was for Iran, who had refused to return to his family quarters and was living in the hidden space behind the coolant junction like a runaway child from some old Earth story. At first, the young dragon was suspicious of everything she did. He would watch her with those amber eyes that never seemed to blink, following every movement of her hands as she examined the broken bird. He would growl softly whenever she reached toward it, even though she had explained many times that she needed to touch it to understand how to fix it. Trust, had learned, was not something that came easily to anyone, and it came especially hard to a child who had already lost so much. But slowly, very slowly, things began to change. Iran started asking questions. Small ones at first, like why she held her tools in a certain way or what the names were for the different parts she was examining. Then bigger ones, about how machines worked and why they broke and what it took to make them whole again. Answered every question patiently, using simple words that she thought a dragon hatchling might understand. She discovered that Oran was clever and curious, with a mind that wanted to understand everything even if his heart was still heavy with grief. She also discovered that dragons, for all their power and pride, did not know very much about fixing things. They knew how to conquer and command and destroy. They knew how to build great fleets and wage terrible wars. But when something broke, they simply threw it away and ordered a new one. The idea of repairing an object, of caring enough to spend time and effort making it work again, was strange to them, maybe even beneath them. "Why do you do this?" Oran asked one evening, watching as carefully bent the wing actuator back into its proper shape. "You spend hours working on my bird. You bring me food even though no one asked you to. You sit with me and talk to me even though I am nothing to you." Paused in her work and looked at him. The question was honest, without any of the pride or suspicion that had marked their early conversations. He genuinely wanted to understand. "You are not nothing to me," she said. "You are a child who is hurting, and that matters." "But I am a dragon," Oran said. "My kind rules your kind. We conquered your species long before you ever reached the stars. You should hate me or fear me or at least resent having to serve me." Smiled, a small and tired expression that held years of experience behind it. "Maybe some humans feel that way. I cannot speak for all of my kind. But I learned a long time ago that hate is exhausting. It takes so much energy to hold on to, and in the end it does not change anything. It does not bring back what was lost. It does not heal what was broken." She returned to her work, her fingers moving with the careful precision of long practice. "I would rather spend my energy on things that actually help, like fixing this bird so it can fly again." The wing actuator clicked into place with a satisfying sound. Examine it closely, turning the bird this way and that to make sure the alignment was correct. It was not perfect. The original components had been made from materials she did not have access to, so she had fabricated replacements from salvaged station parts. The new actuator was slightly different in color, more silver than the original gold, and its movements would not be quite as smooth. But it would work. "The wing is done," she announced. "Now I need to fix the voice box." This was the harder problem. The resonance chamber was cracked, and had spent many nights trying to figure out how to repair it. The chamber was made from a crystal that she had never seen before, something that vibrated at specific frequencies to produce the bird's songs. She could not find anything like it in the waste reclamation yards or the supply rooms she had access to. She was beginning to worry that this was a problem she could not solve. Oran watched her face and saw the worry there. "You cannot fix it," he said quietly. It was not an accusation, just a sad statement of fact. "I do not know yet," admitted. She never lied to him, even when the truth was difficult. "The crystal is broken, and I cannot find a replacement, but that does not mean I will stop trying. Sometimes the answer to a problem comes when you are not expecting it." She put the bird down carefully and reached into her bag, pulling out a small device that looked like a simple music player. It was old and scratched, a piece of human technology that she had carried with her since leaving Earth many years ago. "My grandmother gave me this," she said, "before I left to work among the stars. She said it contained the songs of our home, and that whenever I felt lonely or lost, I should listen to them and remember where I came from." She pressed a button and music filled the maintenance corridor. It was a simple melody, soft and sweet, the kind of song that mothers might sing to their children at bedtime. Oran's ears twitched in surprise. He had never heard human music before. It was different from dragon music, which was loud and powerful and full of glory. This music was gentle and sad and somehow beautiful in a way he did not have words for. "This song is called a lullaby," explained. "Humans sing it to their children to help them sleep. My grandmother sang it to me when I was small, and her grandmother sang it to her, all the way back to a time before humans ever left Earth." An idea was forming in her mind, something that might be either brilliant or foolish. She looked at the broken voice box, then at her music player, then back at Oran. "I cannot find a new crystal to replace the one that is broken," she said slowly. "But maybe I do not need to. Maybe I can build a different kind of voice box, one that works in a different way but still produces sound. It would not sing the same songs as before. It would sing new songs, human songs. Would that be okay?" Oran was quiet for a long moment. The mechanical bird had been made by his mother, programmed with dragon songs from their home world. Changing it felt like changing her memory, like replacing something sacred with something foreign. But then he looked at this small human woman who had spent weeks helping him for no reason other than kindness. She had given him food when he was hungry and company when he was lonely and hope when he had almost none left. She was offering to give his mother's bird a new voice, a hybrid voice that would carry both dragon craftsmanship and human heart. "Yes," he said finally, "that would be okay." Smiled, and this time the expression reached her eyes. "Then let us get to work." She began building a new voice box that very night, using her grandmother's music player as a template and her own ingenuity as a guide. It was slow work, and there were many failures before there were any successes. But Iran watched every moment of it, learning more about humans from those quiet hours than he had ever learned from any lesson his father tried to teach him. Humans were strange, he decided. Strange and fragile and impossibly stubborn in the face of things that seemed impossible. They did not give up when something was hard. They just kept trying, kept working, kept believing that eventually they would find a way. It was, he thought, a kind of magic that dragons had never learned. The morning came like any other morning on the space station, with artificial lights slowly brightening to imitate a sunrise that never actually happened in the void between stars. Had not slept at all the night before. She had worked through the dark hours, her fingers moving with desperate precision as she assembled the final pieces of the mechanical bird's new voice box. It was finished now. The bird sat on the floor of the maintenance corridor, looking both familiar and strange at the same time. The body was still the beautiful creation that Oran's mother had made, with its color-changing metal feathers and its delicate design. But the repairs told a different story. The wing that had been crushed was now reinforced with a lattice of carbon fiber that had woven by hand, turning what was once a weakness into something stronger than before. The voice box was completely new, built from human technology and human ingenuity, and pieces of grandmother's music player that she had carefully taken apart and repurposed. Oran sat across from her, his amber eyes fixed on the bird with an intensity that made his heart ache. He had grown in the weeks they had spent together. Not physically, because dragon hatchlings grew slowly, but in other ways. The fear that had once clouded his eyes had faded. The constant defensive growl had disappeared entirely. He trusted her now, trusted her completely, and that trust felt like the most precious gift had ever received. "Is it ready?" he asked. His voice was quiet, almost a whisper. Nodded. She was too nervous to speak. She had done everything she could, used every skill she had learned in her years as a maintenance worker and tinkerer, but there was no way to know if it would actually work until they tried. The original bird had been created by a master craftsman with access to materials and technology that could only dream about. Her repairs were makeshift and improvised, held together by determination as much as by engineering. "I should warn you," she said carefully, "it will not be exactly the same as before. The voice is different. The wing moves differently. I tried to make it as close to the original as I could, but I am only human. I do not have the tools or the knowledge to recreate what your mother made." Oran looked at her with those ancient young eyes. "You have done more than anyone else would have done," he said. "Whatever happens, I will not forget that." Took a deep breath and reached out to touch a small switch on the back of the mechanical bird. This was the moment of truth. Either the bird would wake up, or all her work would have been for nothing. She pressed the switch. For a terrible moment, nothing happened. The bird sat motionless on the floor, as dead and silent as it had been for so long. Felt her heart sink into her stomach. She had failed. All those weeks of work, all those sleepless nights, and in the end she had not been able to save this one small thing that mattered so much to a grieving child. Then the bird's eyes flickered. Not amber like before. The original eye lenses had been too damaged to repair, so had replaced them with small lights salvaged from a human workstation. They glowed blue now, a soft, warm blue that reminded her of Earth's sky on a clear summer day. The light pulsed gently, once, twice, 3 times, like a heartbeat coming back to life. The wing extended. The repaired wing, with its carbon fiber reinforcement catching the light in patterns that looked almost like stars. It moved smoothly, more smoothly than had dared to hope, the new actuator working exactly as she had designed it to work. The other wing followed, spreading wide in a gesture that somehow seemed joyful. And then the bird opened its beak and sang. The sound that came out was not the dragon melody that Oran remembered from his earliest memories. It was something else entirely, a tune that carried across the corridor like a gentle wave. It was grandmother's lullaby, transformed and adapted to work with the bird's mechanical voice, but still recognizable as the song that human mothers had sung to their children for hundreds of years. Tears rolled down Oran's snout. Dragons almost never cried. Their bodies were not built for it in the same way that human bodies were, and their culture taught them that such displays of emotion were signs of weakness. But Oran was young enough that he had not yet learned to hide his feelings, and in this moment, he did not want to hide them anyway. The bird lifted off the floor and flew. Its flight was different from before. The original bird had moved in elegant spirals, following patterns that its creator had programmed into its memory. This new version flew in swooping arcs, sometimes smooth and sometimes a little unpredictable, as if it was still learning how its repaired body worked. The carbon fiber wing caught the light and threw tiny rainbows across the corridor walls. The blue eyes left trails of soft glow in the air behind it. It was not the same bird that Oran's mother had made. It was something new, something that had never existed before. It was dragon and human woven together, grief and hope combined into a single, impossible creation. "I am sorry," said, and her voice was thick with emotion. "I know it is not what you wanted. I know you wanted your mother's bird back exactly as it was, and I could not give you that. I could only give you this strange new thing that does not quite belong anywhere." Oran watched the birds circle above their heads, singing its human song with its mechanical voice. He thought about his mother, about the love she had put into creating the original bird. He thought about the love she had put into fixing it. Two different kinds of love from two very different creatures, coming together in something that was greater than either one alone. "No," he said softly, "it is not what I wanted." His face fell. She had tried so hard, and she had known all along that it might not be enough. But then Oran looked at her, and his eyes were shining with something that was not sadness at all. It was wonder. It was gratitude. It was the beginning of an understanding that would shape the rest of his very long life. "It is better," he said. "It is so much better." The bird swooped down and landed on his shoulder, still singing, its blue eyes blinking in a rhythm that almost seemed happy. Oran reached up with one claw and gently touched its metal feathers. They changed color at his touch, just like they always had, but now they seemed to change a little differently too. There were new colors in the pattern, colors that had not been there before, as if the bird had learned something new during its time being broken and put back together. Wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. She was not embarrassed to cry in front of Oran anymore. They had moved past such things somewhere in the weeks of working together. "Your mother made something beautiful," she said. "I just helped it find a new way to be beautiful." The bird sang its human lullaby, and the dragon hatchling listened, and the human woman who had fixed a broken thing smiled. In that moment, in that forgotten maintenance corridor, something important had happened. Not just the repair of a mechanical toy, but the creation of a bond that should not have been possible between a species that ruled and a species that served. Did not know it yet, but she had planted a seed in young Oran's heart, a seed that would grow over centuries into something that would change the galaxy itself. For now, though, there was just the bird and its song and two unlikely friends sharing a moment of pure, perfect happiness. Admiral had not become the most feared dragon in the Imperium by being unaware of what happened on his own station. He had spies everywhere, small listening devices, and loyal servants and systems that tracked the movements of every creature under his command. He knew that his youngest son had been hiding in the maintenance corridors for weeks. He knew about the human woman who visited him. He knew about the broken toy that Oran refused to give up. He had allowed it to continue for longer than he should have, partly because he had more important matters to deal with, and partly because some small part of him understood grief even if he would never admit it. His mate had been a fierce warrior, but she had also been the only creature in the galaxy who had ever made feel something other than cold ambition. When she died, a part of him had died too, a part he would never allow anyone to see. But there were limits to what an admiral could tolerate, and those limits had been reached. Word had begun to spread through the station that the young heir to the fleet was living like a vagrant, taking food from a human servant, acting in ways that brought shame to his entire bloodline. Other admirals were starting to talk. Other families were starting to question whether the great had produced a worthy successor. This could not continue. He went to the maintenance corridor himself, bringing a squad of guards with him. The guards were unnecessary for dealing with a hatchling and a human, but their presence sent a message about the seriousness of the situation. Their armored feet echoed against the metal floor as they marched through the tunnels that no dragon had ever bothered to visit before. They found them in the hidden space behind the coolant junction. The human woman was there, sitting on the floor with her worn tool bag beside her. And there was Oran, his scales still soft and blue, his wings still too small to carry him far. But something was different about him. He stood, then remembered. His eyes met his father's gaze without looking away. And on his shoulder sat a mechanical bird that sang a strange alien melody, with a voice that was not quite dragon and not quite human. The guards moved forward to seize the human. This was proper procedure. A servant who had dared to spend unsupervised time with a dragon child deserved punishment. But before they could reach her, something happened that made every dragon in the corridor freeze in shock. Oran stepped in front of and spread his wings. It was the ancient posture of protection, a display that dragons used to shield those they considered precious from harm. It was a posture that warriors used for their mates, that mothers used for their hatchlings, that sworn companions used for each other in the heat of battle. It was never, ever used by a dragon to protect a lesser species. She fixed it, Oran said, and his young voice carried more steel than had ever heard from him. She gave it back to me. She gave her back to me. The admiral looked at the bird on his son's shoulder. He recognized it immediately, recognized the craftsmanship beneath all the modifications and repairs. His mate had shown it to him before she died, had explained how she had designed it to sing the songs of their home world, had hoped that it would comfort their youngest child while she was away at war. The bird was changed now. Its wing had a strange reinforcement made of some human material. Its eyes glowed blue instead of amber, and the song it sang was not a dragon song at all, but something softer and sadder and somehow just as beautiful. Stepped forward, and his guards parted to let him pass. He approached the human woman, this small, fragile creature who had spent her limited repairing a broken toy for a dragon child who had no claim on her kindness. She looked up at him without flinching, which was either very brave or very foolish, and in that moment was not entirely sure which. "Why?" he asked. It was the same question his son had once posed, and it deserved an answer. Stood slowly, her joints protesting after the long night of work. She was tired and scared and aware that her life might end in the next few moments depending on what she said. But she had never been very good at lying or pretending, and she was too old to start now. "Because the galaxy is full of species who know how to break things," she said. "Humans learned, a long time ago, that the harder path is learning how to fix them. Your son was hurting and his bird was broken and I knew how to help. That is all. That is everything." She gestured toward the mechanical bird, still singing on Oran's shoulder. "Whoever made that loved your son very much. I could feel it in every piece of the design, in every careful choice that went into its creation. That kind of love does not deserve to stay broken. It deserves to fly again, even if the wings are different now." Was silent for a long time. The guards waited for his command, ready to arrest the human or execute her or do whatever their admiral demanded. Oran stayed in his protective stance, trembling slightly but refusing to move. The mechanical bird sang its human lullaby, filling the corridor with music that seemed too gentle for such a tense moment. Finally, the great admiral spoke. "Leave us," he said to the guards. His voice left no room for argument or question. The guards hesitated for just a moment, confused by this unexpected order, but they were too well trained to disobey. They retreated down the corridor until they were out of sight, leaving alone with his son and the human woman who had done something impossible. He turned to Oran. "Lower your wings," he said, but his voice was softer now, almost gentle. "I am not going to hurt her." Slowly, uncertainly, Oran folded his wings back against his body. He looked up at his father with eyes that held fear and hope in equal measure, waiting to see what would happen next. Studied the mechanical bird more closely. He reached out one massive claw and touched its metal feathers lightly. The bird did not flinch away from him. It simply kept singing its strange song, the human melody woven into dragon craftsmanship like two threads becoming one. "My mate believed that I was too hard on this one," the admiral said quietly. "She said that strength comes in many forms and that I was too blind to see the strength in a gentle heart. I did not listen to her. I rarely listen to anyone." He looked at, and for just a moment the cold mask of the conqueror slipped away to reveal something more complicated underneath. Grief, perhaps, or regret, or the beginning of an understanding that he had never allowed himself to consider before. "You have given my son a gift that I could not give him," said. "You have given him hope. You have taught him that broken things can be made whole again, that loss does not have to be forever. These are lessons that dragons have forgotten, if we ever knew them at all." He straightened to his full height, towering over the small human woman who had done what seemed impossible. You will not be punished for this. Instead, you will be reassigned. From now on, you will work directly for my household, maintaining whatever needs maintaining. You will be paid properly and treated with respect. This is my command. Blinked in surprise. Of all the things she had expected the Admiral to say, this was not among them. "Thank you," she managed, though the words felt strange in her mouth. "Do not thank me," replied. "Thank my son, who showed me something I had forgotten. Thank my mate, who created something beautiful enough to survive even her death. And thank whatever strange human stubbornness made you spend weeks fixing a toy for a child who was nothing to you." He turned to leave, then paused at the entrance to the corridor. Without looking back, he spoke one final time. "The bird's song is different now," he said, "but I think she would have liked it. I think she would have liked you too, human." Then he was gone, his massive footsteps fading into the distance. Oran let out a breath he did not know he had been holding. He looked at with wide eyes full of disbelief and gratitude, and something that might have been the beginning of love, not the romantic kind, but the deeper kind that comes from true understanding between souls. "You saved me," he said simply. Shook her head, a tired smile crossing her weathered face. "You saved yourself. I just fixed a bird." But they both knew that was not entirely true. What had happened in this maintenance corridor was more than the repair of a broken toy. It was the repair of a broken heart, and the beginning of a story that would echo through the centuries. Many years later, when Oran had grown into one of the greatest admirals the Draconis Imperium had ever known, he kept the mechanical bird on his command deck. His officers learned quickly never to touch it. When dignitaries and ambassadors asked about the strange device with its mismatched wing and its alien song, he would tell them the story of a human woman who taught him something that dragons had never learned. That true power was not in the fire you could breathe or the worlds you could conquer. True power was in the broken things you chose to make whole. True power was in the kindness you showed to those who had no claim on it. True power was in the magic of simple words that humans had mastered long before they ever reached the stars. The magic of looking at something broken and saying, with stubborn hope and calloused hands, "I can fix this." And sometimes, against all odds, actually fixing it.